At a time when the world watches India's rising assertiveness, Operation Sindoor has turned the way India projects its strategic vision. Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have one of India's foremost strategic mind, Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare. He is also the principal advisor to the Ministry of Defense, and not just this, multiple roles that he has had as a strategic advisor to the government. Thank you very much, General Khandare, for joining us on this broadcast. I want to first start by asking you the background. What really happened within the government's thinking room after the cowardly attack that took place in Pahalgam? And many here in the country were already expecting there will be some sort of a response. But what we do not know what really goes behind and the challenges that one really faces.
Thank you, Shravan. Firstly, a very big Jai Hind to all the viewers of Republic. And I'm personally very happy to be with you. I admire Republic as a nationalist channel. And just one small little correction that on 16th of May, I relinquished my term because I'd finished 3 years. And the moment Operation Sindoor stabilized, I thought now is the time to move on. And your question is very valid that automatically inquisitiveness for everyone, every citizen, especially in a democracy. If you are in an authoritarian state, you dare not ask, you dare not even question or even think of it. But in a democracy, it normally happened and people feel the entitlement to know what happens in the rooms. So there are structures, there are processes, there are policies. So what is the structure which decides on what finally we will do is the Prime Minister and his CCS. That is those 4 crucial ministers, that is the External, Finance, Home and Defence. Now between them, when they are very clear that, because they are the elected members of the nation,
Right.
then the NSA steps in. The NSA has the best possible advice because it's not only military issues that he's talking of, he's talking of national security. And the CDS comes with the 3 service chiefs, and then in the closed door, they decide on what response. Why did I say response? We did not start it, we responded. So response, the direction is known, whether it is kinetic, whether it is non-kinetic, whether it is both. And that having been decided, then goes the details of nitty-gritties of what will be the plan. Will it be the Air Force? Will it be the Army? Will it be Navy? How to sequence it along with the non-kinetic issues. So all that goes into, and then the supporting staff of the 3 service chiefs and the CDS, they have a huge job at hand. In addition to that, the NSA pitches in with what is supposedly the intelligence community. The intelligence community, that is the Intelligence Bureau, the RNAW, Secretary RNAW, the NTRO, the External Affairs Minister uses his entire team of ambassadors outside, high commissioners. There is a closed door meeting in which a plan is worked out. What time, where, nothing is sure. It could be at night 2 o'clock, it could be early morning 3 o'clock. And these are the key people who sit there. How do I say that? I have been a part of it during the surgical strikes planning. So I know how well it is done and nothing comes out. Believe me, nothing. Not even a matchstick will come out, and only when this is executed that something will come out. So the planning which is done in detail is done by the services, by the intelligence community. A plan is brought out and then again it is presented in the CCS. The CCS takes a decision, agree, modify, whatever it is, and thereafter it is executed. So it has happened during the surgical strikes, it has happened during Balakot, it has happened now, and it's a logical sequence where we have been raising the cost. You know, initially when you all would recollect, Prime Minister Modi gave an attempt to have friendship What did he get in return? Pathankot. In 2016, the first day of 2016, and Pathankot Air Base. After that, it didn't seem to stop. Uri happened. And we had to give them the reply which is befitting. You know, a lot of people say that, we've done surgical strikes earlier. I am a personal witness to that. My battalion has done something in 2000, in the year 2000. But that was a battalion action, The result may have been very good, but there the government was not as much involved in terms of political decisions, although we had a very great defense minister, George Fernandez. I respect him hell of a lot. And after that, this is the first time that 7 targets were chosen. And I remember during our talk before this, you mentioned about Manohar Parrikar, a great Raksha Mantri. And, before this happened, he said, the pain has to be transferred and magnified on the other side. So that is the thinking, that it has to be done. And Mr. Ajit Doval is also very aggressive when it comes to national honor. Obviously, the Prime Minister is leading this entire.
What was the thinking this time? You're saying there was always a thought behind it as I look at the circumstances that we are talking about. As far as Uri is concerned, you've had a base being targeted. As far as Balakot is also concerned, there too you have a similar sort of a setup. Today, what we saw, many would say that Lakshman Rekha was crossed when you have had civilians being targeted, and obviously a narrative that Pakistan wants to build. What was that thing that the Prime Minister had to tell the services, and what was the thought behind it this time? What did we want to achieve?
See, the Prime Minister obviously is a person of the people. How can any Prime Minister accept this kind of barbarity, that you create widows, you kill people based on religion? How does anyone ever, an elected Prime Minister obviously cannot accept it? That is one part. What about the other people in the apex leadership? Unanimity. That this aspect of what has been done to our civilians who were tourists, who had come there to do something which had nothing to do with the Kashmir issue or whether it was Pakistan issue, nothing. They had no idea as to what was happening. They possibly wouldn't have known the names of the Tanzims also.
Right.
So you pick up whom? Okay, if you did it in a military base, okay, you have a fight with the military. You did it with the CRPF, okay, you have a fight with the uniformed fraternity. What do you have against the tourists, civilians, innocent people, killing the husbands right in front of the wife, giving a message to the wife? Have you ever heard of this kind of barbarism anywhere else? I think there was unanimity that enough is enough and we've got to go across. And to go across, again, here is the point where military wisdom dictates that what you've done last time should not be repeated.
Okay.
So you have to do at a scale, whether it is temporal or spatial. How quickly, how hard, how far. So if we did it in the proximity of LCs during surgical strikes and we did something beyond the LC in Balakot, this time we spread them all over. So I think the planning was very clear. It has to be different, it has to be more, and it has to be shock and awe.
As far as the choice of these very locations, you made it very clear it's the military doctrine that dictates it. I want to go a step further because many asked this question when there were reports coming up of who were eliminated in the process. In Muridke, in Bahawalpur, as well as in Kotli. Was there at any point in time you were looking at certain individuals to be targeted? For instance, was Hafiz Saeed still a target at that point in time? Was Masood Azhar still a target? What was the thought behind it? Was there any intelligence to provide that these men were frequenting these very places and that's the reason why we chose it?
See, intelligence collation is a combination of what comes from space, what comes from comment, and what comes from him, from our people who are on the other side. Now, and all that is fused, and thereafter we pick up which is the target and what are the challenges there. So, our first choice was these 3 tanzims, That is Hizbul Mujahideen led by Sayyid Salahuddin, Jaish-e-Mohammed led by Masood Azhar, and again Hafiz Saeed, LET Muridke. We wanted to clearly send a message that your headquarters may be any amount of depth beyond the IB are not safe. The second message we wanted to send is, now you see the photographs that you've seen, as long as they are repaired, one feeling, that eerie feeling among the people there, that these guys used to say they are invincible, they are not. The Indian state can reach out and shake them by their collar anytime. Now, the point which you made, whether these personalities, whether they were there or not, while it is known as a general practice that they would be there, but the detailed routine, it is very difficult to have precise information. Although, I must say that whatever the human intelligence which is there is very good. Even in Balakot, I have personally seen it was very good.
What was it like this time?
The number of people who were there was known, and that is at the risk of the person who is sending you the information, because he himself could very well be targeted, because he is there, he cannot escape from there. But that kind of intelligence we do have. Now, if you look at what happened finally, and you saw the funeral picture where Masood Azhar lamenting on the loss of 10 people and then wanting to also die, he was very close to being killed. He was very close. He possibly may have had the cat's 9 lives, so he's
You're
not
saying
been
that
there.
there was intelligence that he was present, or he was somewhere in the
See, when
vicinity, or we were very close this
when
time?
we get intelligence, normally it is he on these days he's there, at this time he's there. Precisely at that point in time, we couldn't have got that whether he's there or not. But generally, these people are in that particular area because they have no other place to go. And you look at the timing that we chose. We didn't want a collateral damage. So we thought whoever is going to be in that headquarter or in that particular training establishment is obviously going to be associated with that ecosystem of terrorism. So we didn't want to kill civilians. We didn't even choose a time of the namaz. Otherwise, you imagine, if you actually look at it, these characters should have been there during namaz. We didn't. We didn't cross our Lakshman Rekha, and we have particular.
Dealing with the terrorists.
We have our values that we will not kill civilians. Collateral damage, because then that defeats the basic cause. We've got to segregate between the terrorists and the civilians. But again, when you take your mind back to that picture, the terrorist is there, his family is there, and the military people are there. So what does it talk of? The kind of collaboration, the collusivity, whatever adjective we want to use, but that's exactly how it is. It's a part of the same ecosystem. So whether it's the military or whether it's the terrorist.
What was the response from Pakistan at that point in time? Because we are given to understand that 30 minutes thereafter, Pakistan was essentially informed that the strikes were carried out, and the strikes were basically aimed at terrorist infrastructure. What was the response thereafter from Pakistan?
Shravan, one thing for sure, whenever there is a conflict, there is a hotline between the DGMOs. Take your mind back to surgical strikes. Then also General Ranbir had informed that we've hit terrorist launch pads and we do not intend to escalate this anymore. We have followed the same line. Even this time, when we had finished what was our plan, we had achieved what we had wanted. And we informed them that, look, we've hit the terrorists and this is what it is. There was no response. The response was not on the hotline, but the response was when they took on our civilians along the line of
You're saying
control.
there was no response. What does that mean?
What it means is they have to get back to the chief.
Okay.
I'm not saying Prime Minister because they don't care a damn about their Prime Minister, but they had to get back. So there was no spontaneous response to that. What it implies is they were possibly also shocked as to what has happened. They were trying to assess whatever was the damage. I'm just presuming that this was the reason why there was no response. But the response came. The response came in a kinetic manner. So even if it was not spoken or it was not conveyed to us on hotline, but it came in the form of drone attacks, line of control getting activated, artillery, onto our border villages, border villages in the sense Uri. You look at Punch, a Gurudwara hit, a church hit. Why? What for? Jammu. You look at Amritsar. What were they trying to do? They were trying to give us a message that if you hit our terrorist camps, then the military will take on your civilians. You see the nexus here?
Right.
The response mechanism is not by, so it starts with a terrorist hitting our civilians. We hit the terrorist camps and the military responds on our civilians. You see the response?
Correct.
So it's not in words. It's in their unethical actions, and that is exactly what was not acceptable to us. Then they tried this business of trying to fire missiles at our cities. Again, where? In some places, military headquarters, in some places, missile base, in some places, civilians.
Right.
And that is when the next phase started.
Before I go to the next phase, I still want to ask you this, because many would wonder whether we have really achieved all our goals, because there would have been some sort of a military goal that we have by striking the terrorist headquarters. We are talking about the headquarters of all the three tanzims. And now that there is enough time that has passed by, is there an assessment of the number of terrorists that have been killed, the big names that have been killed, and have we been able to incapacitate the very ability that these tanzims had to carry out cross-border terrorism?
The aim was not military aim, it was a national aim. What was the national aim? That we want to hit hard at the terrorist headquarter, where everything happens in terms of planning, in terms of financing, in terms of training. So you are hitting right at the mind and the stomach and everything possible, you hit that. Was this totally to eliminate terrorism? Can anyone ever eliminate terrorism in your neighboring country by hitting at the headquarters? No. But you did something whereby their belief that we are invincible, that has got shattered. Amongst whom? Amongst all the people who are contributing to the cause of terrorism in the forms of funding or in the form of giving a human resource. Proudly mothers would give and tell that child that, okay, your shahadat is going to bring glory to my family, because nobody can do anything wrong to this particular tanzeem. So the first thing you've done is shaken them up on that account. Now, did we plan to find these big leaders inside? I don't think that can ever happen. A single man is quite elusive. And you will continuously try for that. And it is not through this. You obviously can guess that you've heard those stories of unknown men. They've been after these people. This time we were not after these people as much as we were after the infrastructure and those symbols of greatness. So that the moment you have hit, there is a doubt in their mind that where would we be safe? We are not safe in our own headquarters. That's a very big thing that has been achieved. Now, whether we continue our efforts, obviously those men are still on the prowl looking for these guys. So how comfortable are you where you have to change your bed every day? How comfortable are you where you can't reveal your identity? How uncomfortable is the government trying to protect him all through? So you put them on a job which is keeping them busy all through.
So there is a structural difference than what used to be earlier, where they found safe havens right inside Pakistan. You are saying that today they are on the run.
They were on the run even before we hit, but for a different reason. That was because of the unknown men. But this time, not only these big names in their context, but even their followers are unsure whether if I am in this particular place, God knows when a missile can land. And again, a master stroke where you say that Operation Sindoor is not over. That by itself brings in a lot of mysticism and
Is
a
the
kind of a
operation
fear.
still on?
Yes. See, when you say you have finished, or you say you suspended, or you put it in held in abeyance, the fear of the unknown will continue.
But what does it mean? When you say that the Operation Sindoor is still on, all of us are still trying to grapple with the fact that are we saying that any kind of operation, any allied operation can still continue? What does it really mean, sir?
See, when these instructions are given, who are affected? People like us, because we have to execute something. So we will always be at a high level of readiness. The people outside can keep speculating. If they speculate more, it is good, because anything can happen, we can do anything, and it is for the adversary to keep thinking what happens next. This element of mysticism has to be there to keep him on his toes or to deter him as something where if he does something, what comes next, nobody knows. So what I mean by Op Sindoor continues is Op Sindoor continues. It's only a question of a pause. And that's exactly what the Raksha Mantri and the Prime Minister have also said. You try something, you'll get it.
Can I then ask you that after the successful hit, and let me also perhaps say this from my limited understanding, sir, that for all the military operations that we have covered so far, this by far sets an example, and the example is about our strategic vision. So there is no doubt about the fact that this is one of the by far the best military operations that we have carried out. But let me ask you, after that, did you all go back chest thumping, thinking that okay, it's done, we have done a great job? What really happened? I want to understand, what did the men really talk about?
Shravan, one thing you must remember, that a military person plans everything with a cool, calm mind, executes it with a calm, cool mind, comes back, and there is no rejoicing as you see in Bollywood films, throwing the glass here and jumping and nothing like that. You have done your job, you are calm, composed and waiting next. What should we be doing or what will he do? There is no chest thumping. And
you all knew that they are going to respond because there was no response.
We are always prepared, we are always thinking, our mind keeps ticking. That just because you finish doesn't mean that everything is over. Something or the other can happen. So your mind is continuously racing, and it is racing with possible contingencies, possible actions. So there's nothing like, okay, I finished my operation 9 to 5, 6 days a week and I'm going on a Sunday. It doesn't happen like that.
Right.
In fact, on the contrary, we are very careful. It's a religious day, it's a holiday. What exactly is going to happen, you don't know.
Can you take us to that moment that we've carried out the strikes, we have informed them, and then what happened?
Then we are getting ready again. This information is just one small dot in the entire line. So you've informed him because you want to tell him that we've done with it. That doesn't mean that he's not going to respond. You've done what you had to do. Now you're ready again. You're getting ready that, okay, if he's doing something, I must respond. What is that something? You don't know. Is he going to activate the line of control? Is he going to conventionally attack you? Is he going to carry out a militant strike all over again? Is he going to do something with his aircraft? You don't know. All
what was
three
the most
services.
plausible, something that you all preempted to a certain extent? Because I'll come to that.
We had our entire plan ready for any possible contingency. There was nothing like only this will happen.
No, but what was the most, obviously it looked like you all knew something, because the fact that when you have a swarm of drone attacks taking place and at not one location, we are talking about the entire international border, we are talking about the LC.
So that
was not possible that you were not expecting this. You were certainly expecting this.
So out of all the contingencies, this was one. Getting swarm of drones, getting a missile attack, getting an air attack, anything is possible, So this happened, fine. So what was our response? We obviously put our air defense in the western sector on to getting these swarm drones out. And let me tell you here, people talk of missiles, people talk of other things. Nobody is talking of the ground level where L-70s and Zu-23 did a wonderful job. The L-70s and Zu-23 are the oldest weapons that we have in our inventory. And we were wanting to discard it.
Our oldest inventory did the job, we didn't have to go for the S-400.
With a modification, with a modification in a sense that what is the cost of a drone as a part of the swarm? Hardly anything. Now, what did we do? We used the ammunition, and what have we done with these two guns? We've given it a hydraulic attachment there. we've digitized the site, and we've improved the ammunition where it can go into that swarm, and on that same system of 12 bore where a number of pellets go, and they take a number of those drones down. So those AD gunners from the ground element have also done their job, as have the others. Everyone has done his job. I was speaking to one of the army commander, and he told me, sir, our people have even brought down drones using the LMGs. So everyone is in it. Everyone, every single individual is in it. And they are doing what they are supposed to be doing. Nobody is waiting for orders. They are just doing what they are supposed to do.
Then happens the very next day, we talk about the AWACS being brought down of Pakistan, and perhaps what was seen as impenetrable, at least as far as their messaging, and particularly given the fact that this was provided by someone else to them. I want to now move to the very next day of what we basically achieved. Help us understand what was the goal and how far did we really go?
You mentioned about the AWACS. If you do a quick check from what CIPRI figures are, they have more AWACS than us. Very strange for a country which can't feed its people. But the entire budget seems to be going into this, and you can check, those figures are all available. And AWACS is a very potent platform. It's absolutely potent. If you can't get it down, be sure that they will have a coordinated capability to get at your aircraft, they will have a capability to get at your airfields. So getting an AWACS is, I think, a dream come true for the air chief, that he is able to get it down or to destroy it while in a hangar also. So I feel that if I can do a little more fast forward into that, of getting their aircrafts at their various airfields, that is also a dream come true for a air warrior. Getting them in the air means you could be at a disadvantage, but
Right.
you choose to hit them at a time with the might that you don't let them fly at all. They are all on the ground. Remember the 6-day war between Israel and the neighbors? That's the part. You are able to paralyze the entire Air Force while they are on the runways or whether they are
How
in
was
hangar.
that possible? Like, because we were talking about after we have already carried this out, so they would have been in a much more prepared state of mind. How was this still carried out? Because that remains one of the most perplexing question. Obviously, the very next day, a bigger thing has happened, so no one really focuses on the fact that the AWACS was taken down. But I want to ask, because as a military enthusiast, I would have wondered this question, that how did this happen?
Okay, if you think of it, we had always foreclosed our options at Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Did they ever think that conventionally we will go beyond? Yes, there was an understanding now
But
that
this time you have already done that.
Punjab,
Yeah.
Pakistan, Punjab. Did they ever think we will go to Bolari? Did they ever think we will go to Jacobabad? So what have we done? Look at Skardu to Bolari. You spread them all through. And that is when you see, you look at that satellite imagery where Bolari, that missile has gone through the roof, and look at the damage that has been caused. I think when on the other side, there must have been a superiority complex as to Indians can't do anything, and Indians will always be limiting their choices of targets. So you cross that particular threshold of his thought process, that is cognitive domain, where you read his mind. When I'm saying you, I'm talking and complimenting the apex leadership to say that whatever was the fixation of the other side, that an Indian baniya dhoti wala will never cross this line. And you went and hit him all over, all across. And in how much time? That entire thing was shock and awe. No time given. You know, even before the pilot can go and start his aircraft, it's gone. You look at the hangar, you look at the runway, the kind of puncturing of the runways.
This was because one day before you had already carried out these.
Yeah.
So that had already perhaps neutralized a major threat.
No. See, one AWACS is not everything.
Enough, correct.
He's got nearly 7 AWACS, you know, and they are spread out. It's not that he keeps AWACS at one place.
Yeah.
He's got these airfields and the stations there. each one of them having a separate inventory. They have plans how to do it. Just like us, they would have had plans in Rajasthan or in Gujarat. So that's how the aircrafts are kept. So how do you succeed? You succeed by paralyzing the entire thing, by taking out the capabilities at the airfields, at the Air Force stations. You take out their radars, you take out their command and control. And then the fear that sets in because you've gone so close to Rawalpindi. You know, the Rawalpindi by itself is a GHQ.
Right.
If you are able to reach there, the nightmare of the Pakistani commander that they don't have strategic depth is what you have touched a raw nerve. All through Pakistanis have been talking about Afghanistan as their strategic depth, which hasn't worked since the time Taliban has come. So it has further got highlighted that the lack of width of this country
Right.
can be touched by the Indian side with so much of force that they perforce had to come on to the hotline to talk to the DGM and say, we want to stop.
So, let me now ask you, because the extent of damage that was that happened, we're talking about their military air bases, and of course Skardu being destroyed to such an extent that they couldn't have carried out any of the operations as far as our northern part is concerned. I want to then perhaps also take it a little further, because there was a lot of talk happening that the nuclear sites were also being targeted. Was that true? Did we actually manage to at least come very close or somewhere close?
Okay, you remember what the DG Air Ops mentioned. In fact, a media person asked him that, did you target? And he said, you tell me. So obviously at the international level, are you going to say that you targeted? Obviously you didn't target. It got hit, and it put a lot of fear and apprehension in the mind of the people there as to what is
Was
the
that the
condition.
turning point?
Possibly, yes. Possibly, yes.
The very fact that they got nervous that we have come that
Many
close?
things, not only one. In exactly that half night that you think of, if you reached Noor Khan Air Base, what is it?
Where were we going further? Because I understand that's when all the calls were essentially being made by the Pakistanis ki ab band karo.
So, if you've hit very valuable targets, so you've chosen your targets well.
Right.
If you hit them so hard that they've got to reach out to you, so you've done your delivery of your arsenal very well. So, I think that by itself, what did you hit? How quickly did you hit them? How hard you hit them?
What I meant to ask, were we stopping there? Had Pakistan not dialed United States of America, then would India have stopped?
No.
So we had something up our sleeves.
So, see, every escalation ladder, we were always on top, no? So, I am not talking about their dialing. They are free to dial anybody in this world.
So we had something more in plan. And we were going to go
when
ahead.
they reached out to us and they said, enough. So, we said, okay, if you've learnt a lesson, that's all right.
I want to ask you this, because all of us somewhere down the line thought that there is something more to the Operation Sindoor. There was something, as all of this is part of the plan, AWACS getting destroyed, the very next day you have military bases that were targeted, which no one ever thought that would have gone to such an extent. What was the next step? What were we really going ahead at?
Okay, if you're trying to say, because a lot of media started saying that POJK should have been done, they should have, no, listen. When we started, we were looking only at the terrorist ecosystem. So that was how we were going to do it. Getting POJK or getting a part of Pakistan, it's a deliberate operation. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of preparation. Take your mind back to 1971. It was around the same time that Indira Gandhi had told
the negotiations
then General Manekshaw, later Field Marshal Manekshaw. And what did he say? He said, you need time, And this was not our action, it was our reaction. So there is a difference between a deliberately planned military campaign and a response. So this was a response. This was not a deliberately planned military campaign. If that happens, you need a lot of time to prepare.
If they wouldn't have called us then, after we had targeted the military bases, would we still have continued?
See, continued in which manner? In the sense, if he had hit at us again, we would have hit him back again harder than this.
And
But
we were prepared for something
yes,
bigger
obviously.
than that.
See, you've got to subdue him. Okay, you go through this term of, or 3 terms of conflict initiation, conflict management, and conflict termination. Every time you get into this kind of business, serious business, and you initiated conflict because you were reacting. So the choice was with us. When, where, how. And then you were managing that every time he was crossing the escalatory ladder, you were going higher. And you always have an exit strategy. You can't go on to a conflict and keep fighting till your tongue is hanging out. You always have an honorable exit strategy where you're on top. So you see at every place when we were telling him, and we were giving him an offer that we can stop if you want, which he didn't accept. The final acceptance was from his side. But at every stage there was an exit strategy for him, for us also. You know, you can't get into a conflict and then at the end of it you don't know why you stopped it or what it is. So you're not wanting to go for an all-out war, but you are wanting to teach him a lesson, which you did.
Immediately thereafter, the narrative was this, that there was a third-party intervention, that is the United States of America. The call that went to Marco Rubio from the Pakistani side. I want to understand, in the war room and obviously in the government at that point in time, what was really going on? Did we really accept any sort of calls or any sort of intervention from the United States of America?
Nothing. Absolutely very clear. It was the DGMO from the Pakistan side, and that is what we were looking at. Nothing beyond that, no third party, nothing.
But can you really trust the Pakistani side here? Because many would say that they are buying time. They are buying time so that they can respond once again. They are buying time so that they can irritate us further. Can you really trust the Pakistanis?
We never trust Pakistanis, we never trust Chinese also. You know, it is foolhardy to trust your enemy who has never kept his promises. Even if you had continued, his behavior would not have changed. You know, you actually are saddled with a very terrible neighborhood where you have unreliable people staying next to you. So this part...
Did the Chinese help the Pakistanis this time?
Inventory. Inventory in the sense about 85% of their inventory is all Chinese. Their ammunition is all Chinese. So what do you call it?
But was there a time when the Chinese wanted this to flare up even further? Is there any indication that we have got that the Chinese wanted us to be engaged in this?
No, I won't call it an indication, but my intuition, and which would obviously be a bulk of the citizens, who is interested and who's a beneficiary of a conflict in which India gets entangled? If we have a Prime Minister with a vision who says Viksit Bharat 2047, who's interested in retarding that? Who's interested in putting us in a quagmire where that 2047 never happens? Obviously, there is somebody in the neighborhood and extended neighborhood who doesn't want India to become powerful. So, when you identify your adversary, you have to be very clear who's your adversary, whether it is only a country which has fought wars with you, or it is also somebody who has not fought a war but wants to keep you way down in the economic ladder. Our constant climb in the economic ladder puts people at unease. Why? If you don't buy the war waging material from somebody, their economy gets impacted. There are countries which make huge amount of profit for their GDP and which comes from the war waging industry, right? From the defense industrial complex. And if you don't get stuck in this war, it doesn't help them. So there are many countries which want you to get stuck. That is about the getting stuck in the long run. But the point that you made about somebody not wanting the war to continue is also to cover up certain economic factors. Let us say there is a country A which is providing a fighter aircraft or whatever, and you happen to damage that. What happens to the reputation of their aviation industry? What happens to the stock market? What happens to the future, say, buyers of that? They'll say, no, let's look at somebody else. So it's not only the two militaries in the kinetic conflict. Beyond the kinetic conflict envelope, there is somebody else also getting very worried, sleepless nights, that if this becomes public, that this kind of aircraft has been hit, and there are stories which come out, then obviously the economic angle is important.
So, because there was a lot of talk, because you're talking about that very moment when there was this entire fight, that who lost more aircraft, and that is essentially resulting in the stock prices too. Was the Chinese also part of the disinformation campaign?
Yes, you use the right term, disinformation. A lot of people are confusing misinformation and disinformation. When it is a deliberate campaign, it is a disinformation campaign, and Chinese were very much a part of that. And why would they not be? You ask a counter question. Why would they not be? Weren't they supporting the Pakistanis all through? They were. Who was handling all this propaganda? ISPR. ISPR gets the kind of help from where? From China, right? And these are the two identified adversaries we have. Right. So we should not have any doubt in that. Our doubt normally should come from the potential adversaries who are playing a role without being identified.
Who are they?
So that is where the strategic culture of a country is important. That somebody who's coming and giving a bear hug to the Prime Minister, but is playing against the future of our country, not letting it climb on the economic ladder, should also be viewed with suspicion. Countries which are transactional, and Operation Sindoor has brought in one more advantage. It has revealed the faces of people externally and internally of those who may not have the same convergence of views on our national agenda.
Are you hinting at the United States of America?
You can take it that way.
Because there is an interest that the United States of America has.
Many countries would have. Many countries are not happy, whether they are in Europe or whether they are far west, that why should India be coming up the economic ladder?
So you're saying Operation Sindoor has also thrown up potential adversaries that we need to identify?
They've not thrown up, they've identified. They have unveiled the agenda which otherwise will never come out. This is exactly that cyber war. Unknown, faceless, without a boundary, but continuously keep gnawing at you, keep troubling you. But when this happens and their identity gets revealed, it is that much more good for our country and for our strategic thinking.
We talk about the disinformation of the Chinese, but has India also lost the narrative, particularly after the Chief of Defence Staff made a comment about the loss of aircraft, which was very well put by the DG. And as far as loss of aircrafts are concerned, in a combat, it is but obvious. But what we said or what we mentioned for the global community to consume, we've played it into the Pakistani narrative. Is that the case?
Shravan, look at this. There is a national goal about terrorism that you want to hit at the heart of the terrorism. There's a military goal. There's a military goal to achieve something. When we plan any military operation or campaign, what do we say? End goal has to be achieved. During this entire planning, do we plan that, oh, if we lose 5 men, we are not going? Do we do that ever? Is it realistic? All those people who talk like this have never served in the military and have no idea about how missions are accomplished. Has anyone asked us, why did you capture Tololing when you were losing people? Did anyone tell us, Tiger Hill, oh, you should have stopped, poor soldiers were getting killed? Did anyone ask us that? Has anyone asked us that in 1965, what we won, why did we stop? The military did not stop. Somebody else stopped you, right? You don't stop your mission because you're losing people. You don't stop your mission because you're losing resources. For a military man, whether he loses his life or what he loses, the end goal for which he's laying down his life. And all those skeptics who are questioning this should firstly question themselves as to, do they know anything on how missions are accomplished at the cost of losing your life? Where else, in which profession do you find anybody who's sticking out his neck, who's putting everything of himself and his family at stake to get a national goal accomplished? So anyone who's trying to say that, oh, we lost a Rafale or we lost an aircraft, so we should have stopped. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense and amateurish.
But it's about the fact that we never spoke about the loss of aircraft in the past. Why is it that we need to talk about it now?
See, he is a CDS. He knows where to talk, how much to talk, how to talk. That's not the question. The question is of the skeptics within the country who are questioning. The first question was, why didn't we tell? Okay. We are a country which is a civilizational state. We have ancient wisdom. I think everyone should have read Chanakya Niti. If we haven't read, look at UK, USA, they are teaching. You know, the previous defense attaché here from UK, he did a PhD in Chanakya Niti and Kautilya. We haven't. They teach them there. What is one part of the 17 chapters? It says information has to be guarded. It says that very clearly. If that information is going to help the enemy, you should just not let it go. You are in a way handing him over a weapon to kill you. So if we don't reveal when the operation is on, at some stage it will come out in some form. So what did the CDS say? He said, okay, what is it about the loss of resources? We looked at why did we, and then we corrected and went full pelt. So in this entire thing, what we should be asking the skeptics is, your questioning, is it helping us or is it helping the enemy? And should we cross a line or should we lay down our Lakshman Rekha?
He also makes a mention of a tactical mistake that we learnt. There was a remedy to it and they've moved on. What did he really mean? What is this tactical mistake?
When we go into war, you know, one saying is, when you go to war, your main plan is just going out of the window because nothing goes as per the plan. What does it mean? It means we have to make plans to do something which we had not initially planned as the main plan. So you have an alternate plan, you have a contingency plan, you have a support plan. There are so many things. In war, such things are detected and immediately rectified. This is exactly what he said. That
but is there any clarity as to what did we rectify?
Okay, if there is a clarity, how does it help anyone else except the people who are in the battle there? If this information is of no value to others, why would it be given or shared with anyone? I'll give you an example. Let us say I am fighting for an objective. I made a mistake in some way, or some of my subordinates made a mistake. I corrected it. When I come back, people who are not involved with this, not helping me or not doing anything, they want to know. Why? My question very naturally as a military officer is, why do you want to know?
So there is nothing wrong in what you see, what the CDS has said to the public and to the global community.
See, basically he has given out what happened actually, okay? And in that, when he has said whatever he has said, but thereafter to start asking and say, what did he mean? Okay. Let us say we tell you what he meant. Will you help us? Any one of these people, will they have anything to help us? No, it's our problem.
Right.
We have to handle our problems ourselves. And we now as a nation have to grow to a level and look at those countries which have been perpetually at war because of existential threats. Their citizens know exactly what to do. Their citizens know what to ask. Their citizens know what not to ask and what not to spread. I think that is a bigger part of the strategic culture of a country where the entire population has to be aligned to national interest.
I want to go back to the objectives of it and what we have achieved. The nuclear threshold that we really talk about, and this has largely been also discussed in the Shanghai Cooperation also. Do you believe that has been reduced, or there is a new military doctrine altogether? And if there is a new military doctrine, what is that new military doctrine that we're talking about vis-a-vis the nuclear aspect?
Okay, take your mind back to 99. Okay, what did the government then tell us? Look, you will not cross the LC. Even if people are getting killed, yes, we abide by that because that's a government diktat. You will not change the area of operations. We could have had many other places where we could have really arm twisted them, but obviously the government and supremacy of the civil leadership is what the Indian military also accept. So we continued fighting despite terrain friction, despite the kind of military action in which we lost people, but we didn't. Why? Because there was possibly an apprehension of the nuclear threshold. Okay, one. Second, of Parakram. Take your mind back to that. 1 year plus we were on the border, and what is it that was being spoken of? Strategic restraint. Again, not wanting to get into that quagmire of a nuclear war. Okay? Look at the maturity that has crept in now. People said, if we cross the LC also, he will use a tactical nuclear weapon. You did that with surgical strikes. No tactical nuclear weapon came on you. People said, oh, if you go across and get into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, he may treat it and give it back to you as a tactical nuclear weapon. He's got it ready close to so and so place. Nothing happened. Now you are testing him again, where you said, I will not give him a chance. I will get so deep and I will get so fiercely at him. And when the Prime Minister comes out and says, we've called the nuclear bluff, and he says, terrorism is to be responded in this manner and there will be no talks except POJK. What does it mean? You have laid down for yourself a kind of the roadmap as to how you will do it. Now, if you call it a doctrinal shift or you call it your political thinking which has matured to a level, because finally it is the political and military leadership which have to converge in their thought process and action. I think there's a lot of clarity on that now.
Since you have been part of the security apparatus for this long, sir, let me then also perhaps ask you this, liberty to ask you this, that are we in a position at some point in time to perhaps get back what is ours, that is Pakistan occupied Kashmir? Do you believe that yes, it is within our sight, within an achievable period?
When you look at any action that has to be done by India, Republic of India, there are many arms of the government which do it. Okay, you look at what Honorable Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh has said. He said, "वो हमारे पास अपने आप आएंगे." You have to understand what we are trying to do, and वो अपने पास हमारे पास आएंगे. Why? There are many reasons for it. The people in Srinagar or Uri or Baramulla or Kupwara, what is the kind of life they are leading? What is the kind of life that people in Muzaffarabad or Lipa Valley, what kind of life are they leading? What is the standard of living? What is the buying power of their rupee? And you go to see the podcasts which come from or YouTube videos which come from Pakistan. They themselves compare the price of rice, the price of electricity. What is happening there? If they are willingly wanting to do something, is it not music to your ears? And see, the military hammer is not the first option. But if there be a need, who can ever stop us from doing that? But the point here is, the political leadership has said that they obviously have their input, they obviously have knowledge of many things which are happening on the other side. There are intelligence agencies, there are diplomats, there are people who are in touch with many people. And if Rajnath ji says, वो अपने पास आएंगे हमारे पास, तो what does it mean? So, if a nation is able to get those people on their own to do something, why would you not want to do that?
One final question, General Saab, that is with regards to how does the nation really come together? Today we are seeing that after Operation Sindoor, even the opposition parties had to come together and they've gone outside talking about the way the country has come together. As a military man, you have seen many wars, you have seen many conflicts coming up and going. What is it that still needs to be changed? What is it that we as a country still need to do for the army?
Shravan, I am one of those lucky people of a generation. As a child, I saw 62, I saw 65. At that time, my father was posted in Delhi. He was in the post and telegraph, not in the military. We were staying in Lajpat Nagar. A lot of people will get shocked if I tell you that during that time the civil defense was so good. Lal Bahadur Shastri used to talk to the nation on All India Radio. Blackout drills, blackout everything. Scooter, their headlight, half of it, the top portion used to be covered with black. Why? We derived and devised ways and means of keeping our cities safe. And that we were doing when there were no satellites. That we were doing when the missile threat was not as severe. What my point here is, the nation has to come together to realize that the threat has not gone away. The technology has made the reach so deep and penetrable that no city can say that they are safe because they are not on the border. That is one. Secondly, whole of nation approach, whether it's the state government or the central government, learn from what we are seeing from countries which are at war, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, whether it's Israel. They value their human resource. There's no point in getting your civilians killed. Even if they are on the border or not on the border, can we do something better? Can we have implementation of a policy where every house must have a shelter down below?
Right.
When I was on the line of control, I remember how the villages used to suffer because if we gave punishment to the Pakistan army, they immediately used to punish our villages. There's a village called Churunda that's next to Uri. Imagine the barbarity of these people. They just used to target Churunda. What for? So that is the neighbor you have. So that's what we must learn to prepare. And when we say prepare, we have to get together, at least in our thoughts, and a lot of things will fall in place. And we must look at the threats which are growing inside also. We must identify that and we must work against that also.
Well, thank you very much, General Khandare, for joining us on this broadcast and putting a lot of things into perspective, because this, at a time that we are not only fighting forces from outside, we are also fighting forces from within, and that perhaps sends across a very strong message. Thank you very much for joining us.